I have to give you a warning. This video is going to completely remove the excuse that you didn't know the surface before you played. Because today I'm going to be breaking down the 4 most popular court surfaces and how to dominate like the pros for each one. For each surface, I'm going to be showing you a pro that you should be copying when you're playing on the surface and how you can implement what they do into your game. So let's get straight into it, because the first court that I want to talk about is the hard court. You should be pretty familiar with this one because it is the most popular court surface in the entire world. And the pro, in my opinion, that is the best to ever touch this court surface is Novak Djokovic. There's a reason why he's been so dominant at the Grand Slams, Australian Open, US Open, because he knows this surface inside and out, and it fits his playstyle perfectly. Now, what Novak was able to do on this hard court was out of this world, but you don't have to be as good as him on moving on this court or playing on this court to have an edge over your opponents when you play. Because here's the thing, Novak was so great with his movement on the court, and if you're able to mimic even a small bit of that, you're going to be doing so much better on this hard court. So learning how to slide laterally, even if it's just a small amount, means that you're not going to be taking all those recovery steps and all those takeoff steps that are needed when you're not able to slide on a hard court. Because that's normally people's biggest gripe with the hard court, is that it's tough on the legs, on the joints. It's more difficult to get around than a clay court or even a synthetic or grass court. So if you see that you're constantly on a hard court, you should try to learn how to slide. Slowly but surely you'll get better at it and you'll become way faster on the court. But movement wasn't the only thing Novak was good at. He was also great at manipulating the ball to making sure it bounced the way that he wanted when he was playing on the hard court. Because when you're playing on this surface, low balls tend to stay low, but high balls bounce really high. And that was what Novak was so good at exploiting. Whenever he was on defense, he could get himself into a neutral or even offensive position by making sure that he put the ball up high and deep to his opponent. When he did that, the opponent now has a ball up here that they're trying to attack on, which normally they're not able to. And so they put themselves into a neutral position or even defensive position, which Novak instantly capitalizes off of. But he was also great whenever he was attacking at making sure he put the ball just a little bit lower over that net whenever he needed to, so that the ball didn't bounce up in that perfect spot for his opponent. On a grass or outdoor carpet court, this doesn't normally matter, but making sure that you get a little bit lower over the net for your flat balls can make all the difference on a hard court, because it means that they're not jumping up to make it way easier for your opponent whenever you are attacking. All right, the next court surface that I'm going to be talking about today is the carpet court, more specifically the outdoor carpet court. Now, there's a reason why pros don't play on this court, and that's because it's completely busted. If you make some small tweaks to your game, you can absolutely dominate on this court without learning anything new. Because really, winning on one of these courts is all about the serve and your flat shots. The ball skids like crazy here. It stays really low. On this court, if you hit a flat shot, whether it be a ground stroke or a serve, it becomes way more difficult to control and just to get to overall. Now, the flat serve is the king on this court, all right? You want to be going for as many of those as you possibly can, which means that you want to have your first serve percentages high, because on this court, you don't necessarily have to hit the hardest shot in the world for the ball to skid and stay low and be difficult to get to. So make sure you're getting more first serves in. That way you don't have to rely on a second serve, which normally you add more spin, and it's going to be way less effective on this court. And when it comes to hitting ground strokes, hitting flat shots are so broken. Moving around on this court is really easy, but so is hitting really low, flat and fast shots. So it kind of balances out a little bit. But you have to remember that on this court, you gotta stay low. It's so important to keep your butt closer to the ground. Your center of gravity has to be lower, because you're gonna get those low balls, the balls that skid and make you uncomfortable getting that low. And you still do need to go from low to high to make sure you're not getting it into the net all the time, even if you're going for more of a flat shot. So make sure that you are staying low and you're prepared to shorten your swing whenever you need to. I want to show you the difference between a first serve on a clay court. This is just with a little bit of spin just to make sure it goes in. And this is the same serve on the carpet court. Like I said, no extra spin. It's the same speed, but you can see that the ball is bouncing way higher on the clay court. Now, in a match, making that adjustment to up your first serve percentage can be easier said than done. If you're finding it hard to get your serve in consistently with some good pace, then just hit the link in my description. I'll give you some free video feedback on your tennis if you'd like. But the main thing that you want to be doing is you want to be adding a little bit of spin on this court. Because even if you add that spin, the court itself is going to keep the ball low. Now, the next court that I want to talk about is the clay court. It is such a classic for so many people. This court is very unique in terms of how the ball bounces and how you're going to interact with the ball and the court during points. Now, we all know who the king of this court is, and that is Rafael Nadal. He was the undisputed GOAT of the clay court season when he was playing. And one thing that we can take from his game that will apply so perfectly to yours in your clay court matches is his top spin. Clay court matches are decided by a player's top spin. If you're able to give them heavy, high balls, then you're going to be putting opponents under pressure for free. What Rafael Nadal would do is he would spin the ball a ton on his forehand and his backhand, 4,000 RPM. And instead of going for exact angles, tiny little targets, he would go for conservative targets, but so aggressively with that topspin. And so by doing so, he was giving his opponents heavy balls that were normally misbouncing because those areas are where the court is chopped up most. And the ball would bounce up high because of the topspin and the clay court. A high heavy ball is so difficult to get back, and this is why he was so dominant against so many of the best pros to ever touch the game. So here's how you copy Rafa. We want to be making sure we get a ton of topspin, of course, but also make sure that you're aiming for areas where the court is already pretty choppy. One of the best targets here is the middle of the baseline. This is where players have been moving around the court a ton, so the court is all messed up, and so it's more likely that you're going to get a misbounce in there. And even if you don't, you're going to be putting them under a ton of pressure the deeper that you get. Because this court is much slower, the serve is less important in terms of making sure your first serves go in. So you can make sure that you get your first serve in a little bit faster than usual because your second serve can still put a ton of pressure on your opponent because it'll bounce high. You can imagine that a second serve that bounces high onto your backhand is not going to be something you're necessarily comfortable attacking. So go for your first serve, go for those placements or that spin, and make sure that you put a bit of pressure, a bit of extra pressure on the first serve because your second serve can be way more reliable on the clay court, which is another reason why Rafa was doing so well. Not the fastest serve in the world, but a super consistent one. Which also means that your return game can be on point. Rafa is actually one of the highest rated returners of all time on the ATP leaderboards, and that's because he was so good at doing it on the clay court. He stood way far back and took his time during the shot because he knows that the ball is not going to be lightning fast the same way that it is on grass. But Novak was also really good on the clay, and Yannick and Carlos continue to just block back the return. So either way works, but if you really want to copy Nadal, then you can take a big step back behind that baseline and do your full swing to make sure that you feel comfortable on the return and keep attacking. And the final court that we have is a grass court. Now, this actually used to be a grass court. It's not anymore. But when I was playing on these grass courts here, I learned very quickly, as many people do, that the court is fast. Now, when we think about a grass court, we all think about Roger Federer, the absolute GOAT at Wimbledon. He was such a great player. And the reason why he was so good was because he wanted to close points quickly. And a grass court really helps him achieve that goal. Roger was constantly doing things to shorten points. His forehand being so deadly was one of the reasons why he was able to win so easily on the grass courts. Now, when you're playing on a grass court, you have to understand that there's a difference, once again, between Wimbledon and the court that you're playing on. Make sure that you warm up on the court that you are actually playing on to notice if there are any dead spots or spots where the ball is misbouncing more often than not. I know that when I was playing on this court and when I play at other grass courts, that often is the case. There's always some area that's a little bit iffy. So just be careful and be wary of that area. But apart from that, when it comes to actually winning and dominating on the grass court, it's all about pace. And the serve is so great for this. There's a reason why the two serve bots created the longest match in history at Wimbledon. It's because they can't return each other's serve because it is so powerful when the court is this fast. Getting great pace on your first serve and placing it even just a little bit is going to guarantee a pretty tough return for your opponent. This goes for ground strokes as well. Any flat ground strokes are really going to be skidding on the court, so you need to be careful of that for your opponent, but think about that for yourself too. Speaking of thinking about your opponent, you need to be making sure that you are staying low on a grass court, the same way that we did on the outdoor carpet court. These balls are going to stay low as they come across the court. So you need to be comfortable getting low and making sure that you're going from low to high on every single ball instead of getting on top of the ball and putting it into the net. Because if we go back to Roger, you can see that he's always getting a ton of clearance over the net whenever he's hitting on a grass court. This is because he's able to get low to high all the time when he's contacting. He's not going straight through with his swing, getting those low flat shots every single time. He doesn't need to. He knows that from going low to high, getting that spin on a grass court, the ball is still going to be skidding and be difficult for your opponent to get. And when it comes to your swing, be prepared to actually shorten your swing a little bit whenever the ball skids up on you or is a bit quicker than you're used to. We're not always going to be able to get in the perfect position here on the grass court to be able to do our usual swing. Sometimes we're going to be running out of time because of how the ball is going to be skidding towards us. So whenever that's the case, be ready to shorten your swing just a little bit so that you're able to block it back, still make a great shot, and not give that advantage to your opponent. Because as soon as you start moving backwards as you hit to give yourself more time, you're going to be opening up the strings, taking away pace, and giving your opponents easy winners. So make sure that you're shortening your swing instead. Get that sort of blocking motion back, really aim and direct the ball with that shortened swing, and you're going to be able to easily take that pressure off whenever you feel like you're running out of time on those balls. So that was the 4 most popular court surfaces that you need to know to be able to start dominating like the pros. If you're still struggling with your strategy, then check out this video here. This is the easiest way to get the basics of tennis strategy down so that you understand how to move and how to hit on the court. Or you can check the entire course out in the school community, link in description. I'll see you guys later.